Scream 6. I have very strong feelings about it, and I know that some of my regulars, the Scream series is very close to their hearts. Um, I have only seen the first Scream movie, the one with Skeet Ulrich and Courtney Cox and Matthew Lillard. So that's the only one that I've seen going into this one. So I was looking forward to it. I thought it would be sort of a return to form slasher movie, which we haven't seen in a while, honestly. I mean, the most recent slasher movie that I really liked was X and Pearl with Mia Goth, who, if you don't know who she is, she's becoming a bit of a scream queen, and she's definitely um, one of the better horror actresses at the moment. Um, Anyway, all that to say, I went to go see it, and I have very mixed feelings about it. There were elements of it that I liked a lot, and then elements of it that I thought were very weak. Part of what makes Scream such uh, a classic horror movie in the first place is its meta humoristic type of horror, right? So in the first Scream movie, obviously, you know, the main characters are all well acquainted with horror movies. They're big movie buffs, and they will regularly call out tropes and cliches from horror movies as a way of foreshadowing or um, even like critiquing the genre, which made it very unique because no other horror movie had done anything like that in the same way. Um, and I think that's what a lot of people find endearing about it. It also acts as a cool way of foreshadowing what's going to happen. I wasn't crazy about the original Scream. Um, I've tried my best to see all of the classic horror movies, The Shining and Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and uh, you know Alien, all of like the big ones, right? Scream was one of the only ones that I felt I didn't connect with in the same way. Um, but I can understand why people appreciate it, and I understand what makes it such a classic. Um, Scream 6 does this in the same way, where, they'll call out tropes or they'll call out cliches, but my issue with it is that it tends to flip flop between committing to making jokes about a cliche and then falling for those cliches or tropes. What I also thought that it did was it tends to have very woke type of humor, but then also call out woke culture and that sort of comedy, which was pretty weird. Um, there's a lesbian couple in the movie, uh, and I I was very conflicted about the two of them because on one hand it was good to see the representation, but on the other hand I didn't feel like either of them were particularly strong characters. And actually, Mindy, uh, who's on the poster here. Mindy is this one here. I was incredibly annoyed by her. I was incredibly annoyed by her. Every time she talked, she was giving people attitude, or like she kind of was trying to be played as this like take no shit. Uh, you know, I don't really care. I'm gonna say how I feel and you know call you out on your BS. But she ended up just being really obnoxious and at one point in the movie, and I am trying to avoid spoilers as much as possible, but at one point after the first or second killings, she sits down the main characters. She says, "Okay, who's on our list of suspects? And who's safe and who's on our list of suspects?" Uh, and then proceeds just to like make fun of everybody and just speak unkindly about all of her friends, which is so weird. Because instead of trying to unify their little group and have suspicions about someone, she just I felt it more drew a divide between them, which didn't really make sense because she also was trying to say, "Oh, don't worry, guys, like we'll get through it," you know? The next thing was Sam and Tara's relationship. So Sam and Tara are played by Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera, if I'm saying that correctly. Their relationship confused the shit out of me. Keep in mind, I've only seen this one. I haven't seen Scream from 2022, and I might be at fault for that. And if there's something clarified in there that I'm missing, then so be it. But the relationship between the two of them kind of made no sense. Samantha is Tara's older sister, and she wants to be in her life. And after the events of the last movie, they moved to New York, and she wants to be incorporated in her younger sister's life, but is meeting tension because she's being a little bit overbearing. And Tara, Jenna Ortega, is kind of like, okay, back up. You don't need to be doing all that. You know, you don't need to be micromanaging. You're not my mom, right? Which is fair. Um, but then once the plot sort of starts getting going and Ghostface, resurfaces in whatever form, for the rest of the movie, Tara's approach goes from being, okay, we have to stick together, you and me, like we're sisters, we have to be together, to, I'm such a victim, and everyone needs to stay away from me because everything I touch dies. Which is a very, very stark change from what she was kind of feeling before. And it happens like 3 times in the movie where she goes, you and I should split up. You should go over there and I should stay over here because I'm not safe. When 20 minutes earlier, she was claiming, oh, you're my sister and I need you and, we should be protecting each other. This is a bit of a nitpick, admittedly. And I know there are some people who watch me who really love Friends, and I respect that. Personally, I'm not a sitcom guy, but if you like Friends, that's fine. I have never liked Courtney Cox, not once. There has not a single thing that she's been in have I enjoyed. Um, and this is no exception. In points where she was in danger, I was sitting there going, okay, if she dies, I'm not going to be super upset. I'm not going to be upset. She's always been a problem. And I never wanted to see her succeed with the team. Um, but that's a personal thing. I don't know if maybe, listen, maybe one day I watch Friends and all of a sudden I become enamored, but, for now I didn't really feel it. There were a few parts in the movie where I felt like Ghostface's power, not power level, um, but where Ghostface's vulnerability was sort of irregular. There's one point where one of the characters punches him in the face and he goes unconscious for a few seconds. But then later on in the movie, someone hits a Ghostface with a brick and he like eats it. He just eats it. He eats it and keeps going. And it makes no sense because like does the mask give them like superhuman durability? Or like it just seemed kind of inconsistent and I didn't really like that. I felt like there was no gauge for how much resistance he had. And I understand that part of it is creating tension where, at points you'll be like, "Oh, he's down finally," and then haha, surprise, he's not. And that's partly toying with the audience and keeping them on their toes and I respect that. But other parts you're like, that shouldn't have gotten him. Like, finally, after all that, that's what took you out? Like, I don't know. It was just weird. That being said, I've done a lot of critiquing, but I do want to say there were a lot of scenes I felt were super effective. Well, the one in particular that I'm thinking of is, and you see it in the trailers, but the scene where they're on the subway. The characters are leaving. They're going to the final showdown, basically, and they need to take the subway. And they get separated, and it's Halloween night. So everyone is wearing ghost face masks and, like, classic horror icon masks. Uh, and the fun of that scene is that you don't know who's actually the Ghostface killer, and who's just like a dress-up person. And the subway is packed, so there's like tons and tons of people, and you'll see somebody shift, and all of a sudden he's there, and then he'll shift back, and all of a sudden he's gone. Super, super cool. The lights will turn on and off, and he'll be moving around and stuff. It very, very cool. It sort of reminded me of Escape Room. Escape Room 2, I think, had a similar scene in a subway train where the train was a puzzle and they were stuck in it and they had to figure it out and there was like an imminent danger. Um, and I just think that the idea of like subway cars as a as a setting is pretty cool because you go in and you're stuck there and you're trapped, right? And there's nowhere to go until you get to where you need to go. So I felt like that scene in particular was very, very strong. Really, really built the tension for the final act. That being said, a lot of the good tense scenes do a great job of building the tension for the final act. And right around the end of the second act, I was going, I really hope they're able to stick this landing. I don't think they did. I wasn't very fond of the ending. I thought it was sort of an ass pull, and a lot of the glaring problems that happen in smaller doses throughout the film really become illuminated at the end. I went in hoping for a good slasher, and I ended up leaving with a funny bad movie. And when it peaks, it's really good. When it peaks, it's good. Um, but ultimately, I don't think that the story was strong enough to warrant it being a memorable installment, you know, as a horror movie. That's my general take on Scream. I think 5.5 is fair. You know, when it's good, but don't go in hoping for too much out of it because it never really delivers that. Is that fair?